After days of negotiations, members of parliament have voted in favor of the 2016 finance law. Education unions and the relevant ministry finally inked the ethics charter that includes 4 major principles. The United Nations Climate Change Summit held in Paris kicked off today. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this news bulletin brought to you live from Day News Studios. I'm Oussama. After long and strongly opposing discussions on the Finance Law 2016 that has stirred controversy in the past few days with regards to its clauses, members of parliament have finally voted in favor of adopting a crucial act. The voting session was conducted by war of claims as opposition parliament members threatened to boycott the vote of this law implies dangers to turn on the country and threatens the purchase power of simple Algerian citizens. Still, with the controversial Finance Bill 2016, which is reportedly trying to identify wise expenditures of the government, and in poll conducted by Day News channel, the Algerian citizens expressed their concerns regarding the effects of this law on their daily life and their purchasing power. Karim Fazakri.
53 years after independence, Algeria is going backward to the period before 62. In fact, and in the words of many politicians, the country is launching intricate operations manifested in the Finance Law 2016, which is reportedly trying to identify wise expenditures for the government. At the social level, Algeria is therefore ending the random distribution of public money and ensuring that financial aid is actually going to reach the poor and the needy, cutting virtually all the state's expenses, which seems very urgent as the financial crisis is tolling. The problem is yet not here. The Algerian people are rather worried about the significant increases on electricity, diesel, and other forms of fuels, in addition to many other important consumable products. And what's worse is that the state is also resorting to the removal of important subsidies on certain products, while the people are saying they are not even presented in the parliament and defending against such coercive law. They really hasted to pass this law. The people trusted MPs to present them and defend them, yet it's not the case. If it's really the people who choose to go with this law, I personally would be happy to join them. But I swear to God, I know for a fact that they never consult the people. The Algerian citizens are waiting for a law that works for them because it is generally acknowledged that their situation is already very difficult. Many things are going to be increased, including transport, the thing which would crumble the Algerian citizens. The situation is impossible. And that's not all. Even employees must now pay taxes ranging from 10% for an employee that affects the minimum wage to 50% for those with a salary greater than 6 times the minimum wage. Landowners, including those with agricultural land, will be also heavily taxed with fees ranging from 3% for agricultural land not in production and 5% for non-built urbanized places. Between someone who is paid 4,000 euros and someone who is barely touching 150 euros, there is a big difference. They should normally help this poor, not augment taxes on him. The Algerian citizens is unable to cover for these taxes. They are increasing because the people are poor and most of them are taking measly salaries. I only hope that God will bestow good on us. The situation is serious and the simple citizen is impossible to live with these taxes being imposed on him. There is a difference between the poor and the rich. Other taxes, already known such as car stickers, road taxes, also will experience a significant increase ranging from 500 dinars for light vehicles with 10 years of age to 15,000 dinars for commercial vehicles, including passenger transport and those of large tonnage. Indeed, the new financial bill is certainly arousing much controversy and makes one wonder what these 53 years of independence and the thousands of billions of dollars consumed from the oil windfall have served the country for. It seems that the country's resolution for the new year 2016 has already been made, with the crisis being shifted to the Algerian simple citizen.
COP21 climate change conference held in Paris started today and will resume for 2 weeks, aimed at striking a global deal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and face the challenges of the adverse impact on climate change.
More than 150 world leaders, along with negotiators from 196 countries, have descended on Paris for a United Nations Climate Conference with the goal of forging a new global treaty to require deep carbon emission reduction and to help poor countries that can't afford to cope with the effects of global warming. The treaty is meant to keep global temperatures from rising more than 2 degrees over what they were in pre-industrial times. Before the beginning of COP21, hundreds of thousands of people have taken part in demonstrations around the globe. In London yesterday, more than 50,000 people took to the streets to demand stronger actions. For years, the world's worries had focused on the two biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, China and the United States. Today, both have made serious commitments and are no longer the outliers. The US President Obama and Xi Jinping announced a US-China agreement in November 2014 in Beijing. Since that time, the United States has finalized the Clean Power Plan, which will reduce carbon dioxide emissions from the power sector to 32% below 2005 levels by 2030, and pledged to reduce emissions by 26 to 28% by 2055, compared with 2005 levels.
In the same context, Prime Minister Abdelmalek Sallal arrived today Sunday in Paris to represent President of the Republic Abdelaziz Bouteflika at the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP21. Sallal is accompanied by Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Ramtal Amamra and Minister of Water Resources and Environment Abdul Wahab Nouri. Mr. Sallal, as well as 150 heads of state and government, are taking part in the conference. Always with environment news, and as part of the fight against climate change and reducing its danger, Algeria is to create a national organization to curb the disaster recorded in agriculture, fisheries and forests, as well as the damage marked especially on crops and livestock. Karim Fazakari.
The damage caused by climate change to the global economy was estimated at $1,500 billion for the past 10 years, according to the report published by FAO on the occasion of World Climate Meeting COP21. Algeria, like many other developing countries, was affected by this phenomenon, whose fault is blamed on world polluters number one, big developed industrial countries such as USA, China, France, among others. It seems that the weather is in disorder, yet there is rain in winter and warmth in summer. I believe this promotion to world climate change is only used for economic and political ends, unfortunately. The players are known, i.e. the biggest developed countries in the world, who are selling the underdeveloped and the developing countries some new technological products supposedly eco-friendly. Moreover, FAO organization notes that the annual average of natural disasters, including those related to climate, recorded during the period 2003 and 2013 have almost doubled compared to 1980. As part of the measures Algeria has taken to curb the disasters recorded in agriculture, fisheries and forests, and the damage marked especially on crops and livestock, a national organization to fight against natural disasters is going to be created. Algeria is working on creating a national organization to fight against natural disasters, with new laws being implemented to stop all forms of pollution and guide farmers to use science to reduce the damage caused by climate change. It is worth noting that natural hazards, especially extreme weather events, have a heavy impact on agriculture and hamper efforts to eradicate hunger, poverty, and achieving sustainable development. Thus, an international financing could allow the Global Environment Facility to respond to the many requests for investment support, especially that in agricultural field.
In other news, the Ministry of Housing has issued a new decision that allows AADL subscribers to acquire an LPP apartment, but the latter should first return AADL houses keys in order to be able to subscribe legally.
After more than a year of the decree release that determines the purchase conditions of LPP housing units, the Ministry of Housing has issued a new decision that changes how to acquire them. The LPP formula was introduced back in 2014. And is part of housing formulas supported by the government. The new decision states that all the demands must be registered in a chronological order in a signed register. It will also allow citizens who saw their demands rejected because they already benefited from the ADL program to appeal and vow that they will return the ADL houses keys in order to be able to access the LPP program. It is worth noting that the LPP formula is meant for people with average income. This category of people's income varies between 10 to 20 million dinars, but LPP subscribers' main concern remains, as they don't understand why the prices set to acquire housing units has changed with no specific reasons, knowing that there isn't any law that determines an extra price.
In the education file, after 17 months of negotiations over retaining the right to strike, the Ethics Charter was finally signed yesterday between the leaders of 8 education unions and the Ministry of National Education. It's common ground between unions of the education sector and the Ministry Department in the ultimate goal to ensure stability. The consensus essentially contains 4 principles, which are integrity, respect, professional competence, and the preservation of stability in the education sector. In international news, after months of European efforts to come up with the common policies of mass immigration unveiled on Sunday, when Germany led a coalition of the willing of 9 EU countries, taking in most refugees from the Middle East, splitting the union formally on the issues of mandatory refugee sharing and funding. An unprecedented full EU summit with Turkey agreed a fragile pact aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to Europe via Turkey. But the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, frustrated by the resistance in Europe to her policies, also convened a separate mini-summit with 7 other leaders to push a fast-track deal with the Turks on to press ahead with the new policy of taking in and sharing hundreds of thousands of refugees a year directly from Turkey. The United States and 18 other countries have pledged to double funds of clean energy research to a total of $20 billion over 5 years, boasting a parallel initiative by Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, and increasing the prospect of successful agreement at the Paris climate negotiations that start today, Monday. The White House said that the countries, which include the UK, Canada, China, Brazil, India, and South Africa, span the biggest global economies and major emitters, oil and gas producers, and leaders in clean energy research. Two Israeli youths who kidnapped, beat, and burned to death Palestinian teenager Mohammed Abu Khadir last year have been found guilty of murder. The court, however, accepted a petition from lawyers of the accused ringleader Youssef Haim Ben David to consider the claim of insanity. The panel of 3 judges acknowledged in their ruling that Ben David had committed the murder, but said he could not be convicted at this time because of his mental state, setting a new sentencing hearing in January. And to wrap it up, tomorrow, December the 1st, is the international community will be making World AIDS Day. It's a day to draw attention to HIV epidemic around the world and opportunity for people to unite in the fight against the disease. Hint Minaras.
Despite major advances, HIV, or AIDS, remains one of the world's most significant public health challenges, particularly in low and middle-income countries, with new diagnoses every year. World AIDS Day on December 1st is used to unite people in the fight against HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus first identified in 1984, to show their support for people living with HIV and commemorate those who have died. Here are some facts about AIDS in 2015 with data from the World Health Organization, the United Nations Children's Agency, and UNAIDS. Globally, about 36.9 million people are living with HIV, including 2.6 million children. An estimated 2 million were infected in 2014. An estimated 34 million people have died from HIV, including 1.2 million in 2014. The number of adolescent deaths from AIDS has tripled over the last 15 years. AIDS is the number one cause of death among adolescents in Africa and the second among adolescents globally. In sub-Saharan Africa, the region with the highest prevalence, girls account for 7 in 10 new infections amongst those aged 15 to 19. At start of 2015, 15 million people were received antiretroviral therapy compared to 1 million in 2001. Despite widespread availability of HIV testing, only an estimated 51% of people with HIV know their status. The global response to HIV has averted 30 million new HIV infections and nearly 8 million deaths since 2000. In 2015, Cuba was the first country declared to have eliminated mother-to-child transmission of HIV. HIV and AIDS experts say while there are technical solutions that could see the eradication of AIDS, there is a need for more social and cultural intervention. UNICEF's Craig McClure says there are innovations to promote early diagnosis and treatment of infants, which could see a decrease in teenage mortality over time.
The end of this news bulletin. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.